Thank you. This is quite an honor to be in your presence, and especially since you have the honor of being the only person to serve as AECT president twice.
That's right.
That's right, okay.
You know how that happened?
No, tell me.
Well, we had a big convention in Detroit, and I was not on the ballot. And there was a big argument over which of the three candidates they should support. They got into a big rhubarb. And they finally said, Walt, we haven't heard from you. What should we do? I said, take a poll of this gang here and see who will the one that's for president. And that's how I got to be president the second time. Isn't that something?
That is something. That is. Well, you must have done a good job the first time.
Oh, I wouldn't say that. I had lots of help.
Did you?
Oh, yes. I got to know that gang. I almost visited myself around to make all the states, but I didn't quite make it.
Okay. All the states. Wow. Let me ask you a little bit about how you got started in our field. What sparked your interest in
Well, first of all, my first degree is in money and banking.
Oh.
I come from a family of teachers. And they were all teachers who were well off. They were heads of their departments. But I always looked at them as sort of a tight money gang. And I said to myself, when I get to be in the graduate school, I'm going to enroll in money and banking. I want to break this chain. Then in 1932, when I entered the university again, I was expected to respond by being another teacher, and I said, no way, I'm going to now change my major. And my parents said, you can't do that. We paid for one education for you. You're not going to go into money and banking. That's too expensive. I said, that's all right, I'll take care of it. And I worked my way through the college at that time, and I graduated with my degree at the master's level in money and banking in 1934, right in the middle of the Depression.
Wow.
Well, to make a long story short, I spent 2 years in bankruptcies in 5 different banks.
Well, after you majored in money and banking and you worked a little bit after the Great Depression, did you go to get a degree in our field, in audiovisual communication?
No, I got my next degree was in educational administration.
Oh.
And with that, nobody quite knows what that is. You can do anything, as you know. And that's what I did. I never had less than 2 jobs.
Wow.
Because I was raising my family. And they all like to have fur coats to keep up with the girls, you know. So they kept me humping. But I never missed, I have nothing to say about my past, excepting I wouldn't dare to try to live it again.
Very brave.
Yeah. And if you haven't read my memoirs, while you're here, I wish you would take the time out and spend an evening looking at one.
I will.
All right.
Thank you. Now, you worked at the University of Wisconsin, is that right?
I started out in the class as a classroom teacher, working. I taught to make myself get in through the graduate school. And when I got to the graduate school, they say, you know, you want to change your money and banking? We can't put any of these credits in, but we'll send you it into one of our young professors who's looking for students. He said, we're looking for students around here, and if you'd like to come back in, we'll help you, because we're looking for students. That was in 1934. Well, that put me in touch with a guy by the name of John Guy Fowles, who was a young whiz kid from Columbia, who got his master's degree in early on, 1962. So he and I made a tack. If I would work out on 20 credits a semester in their majors for 2 years, And if I would get through that with all A's, they would guarantee me a degree.
Wow.
And that's what I did. That's how I got into this field.
Okay.
And one of the first people I met was Augenbaugh. Augenbaugh was a guy in Ohio. He was state director of video in Ohio. Did you ever run across him?
No.
Oh, those were the dim, dark days. But he was a guy who invented the quick communication. You would call up, and he was at the University of Ohio. He said, you call us in our audiovisual department, and we will guarantee them overnight delivery of any one of our 5,000 titles. And that's the story I took back to Wisconsin.
Okay.
And that became a brass between one guy who's now dead. He was at Ohio. But from there, I was in this field.
Okay.
And I was given short shift by all the old gang because they thought that this was the guy who got bounced out of the university, not making it in money in bank.
Tell me a little bit about your first job.
My first job was when I decided to go back to school, and my wife said, we'll both help, we'll both work, but we're not married yet. But we make arrangements, you know. And after that was complete, I got my degree at the master's level from the University of Wisconsin School of Education. And from there on, it was all the way up. Because this young guy was a real genius. He decided to be my caregiver. He was my, what do you call him?
Was he your advisor?
No, he was more than that. What do we call him?
Mentor?
Mentor. He was a real mentor in all the sense. He made life miserably for me.
Oh, no.
I was always carrying 20 credits, and he was watching that 20 credits earn nothing but A's all the way through. And that's where I got started. And that's how I met my first audiovisual guy. He was running the bureau at the university. And when I graduated, he ran away with the office secretary and all the money he could take in from the film library and go to Florida.
Oh.
And my mentor said, now we're going to see that man, and we're going to sell him on the job because they're not hiring any teachers, but they're going to hire you. We'll make him a deal. Well, I won't go into the details of that, but that's how I started at the University of Wisconsin.
Oh.
And I took over, ultimately, I took over his job because he never did come back. And I ran the shop from the University of Wisconsin Audiovisual Education Center.
Okay.
Quite lucky.
What were some of your responsibilities there in your job?
Well, first of all, I was running the film library, and it was in bad shape. They had about 1,000 films, and they were struggling along on a limited budget. And by the time I got done with that, I had an agreement with them through this mentor. He was a real politician as well as a good teacher and a good friend. That was my first job. But I only got it because my father was the chairman of the Department of Physical Education for the University of Wisconsin.
Oh, was he?
Yeah. And he said, now, you can do anything you want, but first you're going to get one of our 2-year degrees in men's physical education. So I got that in a semester and a summer session.
Oh.
And that's how I got into university. That's how I got the job there. My first paying job was out of the university into Central High School, where they were having an uprising among students who were knocking themselves out, busting up women's gang. This is one of the first rumbles of student uprising at Wisconsin in 1964.
Oh.
The only reason they hired me was because I had gone to the School of Education, and I had learned one of the courses that my father taught was self-defense. And I went through all the rigmaroles from the colonial ones to the European ones to the American ones including all the alphabet names of all those things. And I could handle myself very well, because by that time I had a white belt. And I got the job because I guaranteed to take care of that gang of 25 kids in the classroom, and had already knocked into hospital care of the two nurses, the two teachers that I took over for them.
Wow.
That was my first job.
Sounds tough. How would you characterize our field when you first entered it? How would you describe? Was it audiovisual communications at that
No.
time? What was it
No
called?
way. They didn't have any names for it. They sort of hid it in the schools of education.
Okay.
Just as sort of the helper group, you know. We got these guys that know how to operate. We'll put them into our department and let them move us on. That's how we started, without any name.
Okay.
And we had a bunch of old-timers who would meet periodically in Chicago. And I got myself invited down there. And I met about 15 of them. All the old gang, all from 1920 on. And knowing them was very good. And none of them had any money. But by the time I got done, I had got my mentor again to help me. And without that mentor, I wouldn't be here today. He did everything. He pointed out the way to go, and he loaded me up and put me on the deck. He said, "Now do it."
And you did.
Yeah.
Our field at the time that you entered it was primarily focused on using media to support learning. Was that right?
No.
No?
No.
Tell me a little more about it.
It was a very rudimentary, slow-starting, underpaid gang of people. The first thing I did was to look over the situation at Wisconsin, and I got a deal with them to send me to the Department of Agriculture. And I went down there and I found out all the books that they were publishing and circulating and not doing a very good job. And I said, look, if you put those books with me in Wisconsin, we'll open up the Department of Educational Communications and Technology right away. And we'll get all your books that you can send us. And they all had a bunch of them. That we'll take over the whole process, but we will charge 50 cents providing that you will provide us with a little feed money here, but allow us to collect all of that and put it into the development of this embryo department. And pretty soon we had the largest university of films outside of Indiana.
Wow. That's impressive.
I can't think of the guy's name there. He was a powerhouse. But it was clear gaining. I soon had a staff of 25 people. They're all paid for out of rentals to the schools.
Oh.
And I would go into the school in the summer, and I would show them what can be done by properly introducing a study approach to using good, well-cared selection films. And I also made a deal with Encyclopedia Britannica. After a while, I was elected to the staff of the university in return for certain things that I would do at the University of Wisconsin, but also with the help of Encyclopedia Britannica. And I began making demonstrations all over Wisconsin on how to intelligently revise the talking face tradition with a new look in Encyclopedia Britannica pictures. Now, they never paid me, but they did provide me ultimately with a pass with United Films, which I could carry on with me and use it at my own discretion to go anywhere in the United States as long as I would take along a couple of films from Encyclopedia Britannica. And that worked out. I also was a member of their board of directors.
Okay.
And they paid me very well, and they soon were sending me out on all sorts of talking stunts with their students. And I had a a rich experience there.
Did you work with, was it Charles Benton? Was at the Encyclopedia Britannica? The Bentons?
I knew them very well.
Did you?
They were man and wife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They would entertain me in their home. And they were the ones who finally got me this patch. He said, we like what you're doing for us, but you're not getting paid, and we're not going to pay you. But we will do this. We will give you an unlimited pass, first class, to go anywhere in the United States where you wanted to put on a demonstration of how to use films in the classroom. And you use EBF films.
Okay.
Now that may sound to you as a tricky sort of thing to do, but it wasn't. They all decided that I finally had to put myself on a half schedule with the University of Wisconsin to quit. I taught on Monday, Wednesday, and Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and on Thursday I could go out and visit.
Okay. Okay. So did you travel around the country then?
Yeah, well, I'd meet people at weekend conventions,
Mm-hmm.
and they would say, well, we'd like you to come and spend a summer session with us.
Oh.
We can't pay you. I said, well, what can you do? Well, we could put you up at our summer session and pay for your room and board.
Okay.
And then I said, will that take care of my family? And they said, sure. So every summer for about 20 years, as my family was growing up, from little kids, we'd spend the summer on another campus. It's all in the book.
Okay. Dankeschön.
Bitteschön.
Oh, that sounds interesting. So was film primarily the medium that you worked with?
No, I started out with film strips.
Did you?
Yeah. Big ones. The kind that you knocked into a big box
Yes.
and sent out with all sorts of stickers. That was what I had to work with when I took over that department at Wisconsin.
Okay.
But they were the ones who said, if you can get all those books in there, and if you can pay your own way, we will allow you to keep all that money, not for you, but for developing the thing. And I was soon on a budget of around $50,000 a year. And
That's
we
impressive.
had great sport, because we could spend that where we wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
I got none of it, but I got what I wanted.
And you began the department there at Wisconsin?
No, I didn't.
No, you...
It was already going. It was a film department. The men who ran it would take the pictures for the campus, and that was it. That was it. What I made a deal with them that everything we took in, we would plow right back in,
Okay.
in films, and that ingratiated me to some of the film producers, because they would come to Wisconsin, and I would send out their films for evaluation from a team of teachers who would do that in Wisconsin. And they'd say, this is a good one, we'll put it here.
Mm-hmm.
And pretty soon we had a film library of about 5,000 titles.
My goodness.
And the second largest in the United States. Indiana was the only one that had a bigger one. And that guy's now dead. You must have known him.
One of the, was it the gentleman that started the department there? Was it Howard Levy?
No.
by any chance? No?
This was back in 1930.
Oh,
1930, 38.
Okay.
See, I've been around here a long time.
I know.
But it's been very successful, and it's been a pleasure.
Well, that's fantastic. How would you describe AECT when you were first president?
Well, it was a big toss-up about whether we should give a front seat to film strips or these new things that were coming in, computers. And I said both of them.
Yeah.
And by the time we were done, that's what we were doing.
Yeah?
Now, I have to say that Wisconsin has sort of lost its place in the last years or so in the field.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't. Some of my successors didn't produce.
What were some of the courses you taught?
Well, all had to do with improving instruction. I had when I went back to I had retired from Wisconsin in 1960, and from there I went immediately to the same kind of a job at the University of Wisconsin, of Hawaii.
Oh.
And they created this job for me and gave me 6 professors that I could hire from anywhere in the United States to make this department. And they're still making tracks.
Where in Hawaii was that?
Pardon?
Where in Hawaii?
Well, the whole thing, the University of Hawaii is right in the center of the capital city. What's the name of it?
Honolulu?
Honolulu.
Okay. That's where you were?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the university there.
Did you stay there a long time?
I was there until they retired me again.
Thank you. For the second time.
But I retired the first time from Wisconsin a little ahead of time. And then they finally kept me on for overtime at Hawaii until I was there for 15 years.
Oh, okay.
So by that time, I had revised their whole system, and they're still using it.
Oh.
And it put the teacher in the driving seat. We got a catalog out. We got a catalog each year with approximately 3,000 films. And on the first day of September, there was that catalog to get you. They're all right there. Get that on every teacher in Wisconsin had that catalog on her desk when they opened school, and we were off to a bang-up start. It's all in the book.
Very shrewd. What were some of the major changes that you saw in the field during your time?
When I came in there, they said, "Oh yeah, you're showing moving pictures. We don't know if we're ready for that yet." That's where I'd start. I'd go out to the University of Wisconsin has 9 branches. And when I first went in there, I organized a class in audiovisual instruction. And I would go out at night. That's where I went out. I went out in an evening it was hard on the family. Yeah. But we made tracks. It's all in the, it's all, you can eyeball that.
Okay. Okay. And so you worked with films and film strips. What other media did you work with?
Well, we broke our way into computers. I had a computer early on. I never could really operate it well.
When did you get your first computer? Do you remember?
Yeah, my kids bought it for me. It was right after I retired. In 1978. By that time, I was already retired. He had born in 1910, and 100 years later, I was ready.
You were at the forefront of educational media.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You bet. And I was well reimbursed for it too.
Were you?
Yeah.
What were some of the other trends that you saw during your career?
Well, you see, this textbook I had, which is a national seller, it's titled in 4 different languages, and I got a copy of it here. I can show you a copy of that. The Russians wrote in for a copy, and they said, the guy called in and said, "Shall we send them a book?" Yeah. Well, they don't want to pay for it. I said, "Send it to him, charge to me." Well, they were the first ones that was in Russia. A year later, they sent me a copy of my book in Russian.
What do you feel like were some of your major accomplishments during your career?
My first accomplishment was marrying my wife. She was a wonderful woman. She was an only child, and when we decided to get married, she said, "Now, Walt, I'm marrying you on one condition. I'm not going to raise an only child." I said, "What do you want to do?" "I want at least 6 kids."
Oh my goodness.
And we didn't get that far.
Tell me a little bit more about some of your accomplishments during your career. What were some of your major contributions to the field?
Well, first of all, I was there when they were fumbling with what their name should be. And I couldn't hold up. I was going to shut up. When my term came, I said, "This has got to be something larger than a tag-along. It's got to be a central activity, and it's got to be called a degree, corollary, wherever we can set it up. And that's happened.
It has.
Well, my major accomplishments? Well, I have a lot of friends. And a lot of them still write to me at Christmas. But I can't answer them now because I can't write to them. I cannot write a readable hand anymore.
Well, I can't either, Walt. So
I have to have my daughters do it for me.
Oh, very good. Can you talk a little bit about what were some of the activities in AECT when you were president?
In AECT?
What kinds of interests and activities did AECT have at the time you were president?
Well, they all looked at a lot of the people there looked at their jobs as a sort of a relaxation, you know. Put a film in the classroom and turn it on, and you could be free to go down and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Well, everybody had their chance to come in and demonstrate, including me. And my forte was to invite a classroom of teachers to come in and bring in 5th grade students. And I would introduce myself as their teacher for the day. And I'll show you what I would do if I were using media. Well, we always had a high point demonstration, and I usually had one of my own. I would have kids in here, and we would work out how we would. My opening question was that a good teacher turns on saying, "We're going to study this now, and the first thing we're going to do is to find out what you want to learn about." And that took a couple of days usually. And after that happened, then I would then come back and say, "Now, we're going to do all of this." In the meantime, I had talked to the filmmakers about having more films. I would talk about people who had maps, globes, and charts, and they would provide us with those things to put in our classroom. And I'd panel myself through all those people who were coming together to see what was this all about, and taking a big chance.
Thank you so much, Walt. Thank you for your time.
Okay.